what we do in a day, and also be prayerful, because meditation or dhyan is not a separate time we set out कि आधे घंटे मैंने कर लिया या एक घंटा कर लिया, so I'm so meditative. So it's a state of mind. It is how you are through the day, 24/7. So it's hard work. So day in my life is hard work, because when you start doing sadhana, you're not a samsari, so to speak. You're aware that you have to do sadhana. You have to be conscious of everything you say and do. So I get up in the morning. So for everything in our parampara, in the Sanatana Dharma parampara, जो भी अपना मत है या पंथ हम follow करते हैं, there are shlokas for everything. उठने के समय, सोने के समय, स्नान करते समय, भोजन करते समय, भोजन बनाते समय, पकाते समय. So I do that. So I have a shloka for everything, even to pour water in tulsi plant. मतलब it is available. आप Google कर लीजिए, आपको मिल जाएगा. There is a shloka for everything, right? So that makes you connected to everything around you, to the people, so the Adhyatma is connected to Adhibhautika, Adhidaivika. So you understand there's something bigger than you. So ultimately वहीं जाना है, जीवात्मा परमात्मा ऐक्यम में को समझना है या उसमें उस निष्ठा में रहना है. So the day goes like that, puja part वगैरह, apart from the work, which should be like worship. So I try my best to do that. And when I get time, my guilty pleasures are series I watch, but I like Korean series. So kabhi Korean, kabhi Turkish. Reading books on Sundays.
Okay, so as you already said that you have been involved in Vedanta studies for a long time. So what drew you towards Vedanta, and why do you think it is important in today's time, especially to go back to these Indian systems of knowledge or philosophy?
So not very long, as much as I would have liked to, because in my ecosystem, I'm with Asha Vidya Parampara. I know the Chinmaya Mission people. So in my ecosystem, people have been doing it for much longer. So actively, I've been involved, let's say, for 12 years and 10 years for sure, when I met my Guruji, Puja Swami Dayananda Saraswati ji, in 2012. So whatever little transformation or understanding has happened, it's happened after that. Usse pehle pura, it was preparation. I think a person has to be ready and have that adhikaritvam, the eligibility to meet a guru or to get into the study. What drew me is, for sure, it's my ancestry. I have to thank my ancestors, my pitras, my parents, the whole lineage. Ghar mein, my father is very spiritual minded. My mother is very religious and spiritual also. So there is that atmosphere. And of course, my own interest, which I did not let it die. So I was constantly seeking. So people think Vedanta जो आता है तो कोई कठिनाइयां हैं, समस्या हैं घर पे और अपने लाइफ में, जीवन में, तो you go to spirituality to, because बाधा है. But in my case, and most people that I know, it's mostly about seeking. You're seeking the truth. You're curious कि भाई आगे क्या है और क्या है. What is your laksh? What is the purusharth? So at that time, I didn't know the lexicon of it, but I knew that I was seeking something from my childhood. And it became more and more, जैसे तीव्र कहते हैं ना, towards middle age. And then what people call the midlife crisis, thankfully I met my Guruji and things were better than before. And that's what drew me to it. And why should we study this, and why should we focus on the Bharatiya Jnana Parampara, which is also called Indic knowledge systems, and which is what Brihat also does. We base our work, creation of content, visual or otherwise, on the Indic knowledge systems, whether it's storytelling or curriculum development or leadership mentoring, everything from a Bharatiya Drishtikon, from an Indic perspective, right? So why is it important? Because first of all, the goals are very different. Western colonial education is all about arthikata. It's like economics, finances. How much you earn, what you do, and the goal here is very different. Everything in our Sanskriti and our Sanatan Dharma, whether we know it or not, whether we're conscious of it or not, including the Hindu, all the Hindu samskaras, are geared towards the Purushartha of moksha, whether you want it or not, because we are literally free and we don't know it, we are ignorant. That's the whole idea. But whether it's dharma, jo bhi karte hain hum, it's geared towards that. So there is a huge difference between that as a goal versus only economics or finances as a goal. Right. And that is the focus also, because when we study from that point of view, or we involve ourselves in Bharatiya Jnana Parampara system, which is dance, music, coloring, martial arts, कुछ भी हो सकता है. It could be science, math, physics. Um, it is a transformational experience. It's experiential, literally. So sadhana hoti hai isme. So we are not just filling our heads with information, and then by whether by rote or otherwise. Matlab, in the West, people will say, "Oh, Indians just learn by rote," and we would say, "Oh, they just do whatever, but they don't have good memory." Doesn't matter if you're just filling your head with information, whether by rote or otherwise. It's just still information. It's aparavidya. So
Exactly.
paravidya ka to there is no understanding. So Indic knowledge systems, whether it's simply like a dance or sangeet, kuch bhi ho, and there were these Dhara events by the IKS division of the Ministry of Culture or Education, I'm forgetting, but they have had all these series of events focusing on different aspects, for which Brihat had partnered also. So Sangeet ho, Natya ho, martial arts ho, metallurgy ho, agriculture, Rasayan Shastra, everything of the Indic knowledge system,
Every. Yes.
everything goes towards that, the final goal.
Interestingly, today itself, I met one of my professors, and he was telling me about this very interesting shastra, Ramal Shastra. It's called
Ramal, la.
Ramal. Yes, it's La.
Ah, ah,
So this shastra basically tells you about yourself through
hmm,
the questions that you're going to pose to a person.
hmm,
The person is going to even guess the questions which you have written on a piece of paper.
hmm,
The person will just note the time कि
hmm,
इतने बजे उन्होंने वो क्वेश्चंस लिखे, इतने मिनट, इतने सेकंड, इतने घंटे. उसके बाद वो आपको पेपर दे देंगे कि आपने ये क्वेश्चंस लिखे, and they will just let it be there.
hmm.
And after 2 days, when you go to that person will tell you the exact questions which you have written.
Wow.
Same. It's amazing.
But
Other
this
than
is
this,
like a guessing game, right? This is more like a guessing game or reading the mind.
no, it's not that. That's what it's. I mean to say that this is a science. So something like this is the Brigu Shastra. The Brigu Shastra.
Hmm,
Okay, the Brigu Samhita. Sorry, this was written 2,500 years ago, and it's all science. It's Indic knowledge which we don't know about. So when we say that people are guessing, making deductions through the movement of the planets,
hmm,
this has already been written. Like जितने भी उस planets के movements हो सकते थे, जितने भी combinations बन सकते थे, जैसे 9 ग्रह हैं,
hmm.
फिर इतने नक्षत्र हैं, नक्षत्र के 4 चरण हैं, उसके हिसाब से जितने भी 5 लाख वो पूरे total combinations बन सकते थे. Somebody has already written that, and when you now see कि आप अपना chart बनाते हो, so it's just you have to pick out from those 5 लाख charts और आपको आपका पूरा life मिल जाएगा एक उसमें.
All the combinations are already there, and
Already there.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. It was not only astrology; it was a combination of astronomy and astrology. Jyotish is a
Exactly.
combination, and it's not just predictive. There's so much more to it than.
So much more.
So मधुरिमा जी हैं जो आर्या एंथोलॉजी से, इससे पहले एंथोलॉजी में मेरी कहानी है मैत्री, उसमें उन्होंने एक कहानी लिखी है, and she is also she's I'm saying astrologer, but she studies Jyotish, and yeah, so she talks about it with a lot of because she knows this and she had talked to us about it, and in one of your interviews, I think Gaurav ji ke saath, she talked about it in detail. Yes.
Sorry to deviate. It was just that Indic knowledge has so much to offer, and when we get to know the feats that it has accomplished, it is hard not to talk about it, especially.
So
Yes.
I would interrupt here and say feats and all are fun. मतलब कि भाई feats है, it is so awe-inspiring and all that. But more than that, for me, the value is in it being transformative. So feats हो सकता है, आप catapult कर सकते हो, या you can climb so high and go so low, whatever, you can become small or big. ये भी सिद्धियां हमारे शास्त्र में हैं. But how does it matter if the person is not transformed? So
The end goal. Yes.
and what is transformation? Literally in Vedanta, since you asked, the idea is not to fear and not to be insecure. Fear not just of like bhoot pret se dar ya
Mm-hmm.
chori se dar, not just that. So it says the ultimate, what it says is, the fear comes from the second. So at least in Advaita Vedanta, which I study, Dvaita Advai Bhavat Bhavati. Dvaita is from the second, fear emanates. So as long as there is another, उससे jealousy है
Duality.
या envy है, duality है, तो डर है, तो competition है. So in the oneness, there's no fear, because आप अच्छा कर रहे हो, good for you, you're happy that the person is you in a different name and form. नाम रूप अलग है. So with that understanding, there's a lot of ठहराव, lot of centeredness, and there's no fear. I'm not saying I'm there yet. अभी भी कई चीजों में भय लगता है, but not as much as most people. और insecurity तो है ही नहीं. So there's no fear for the tomorrow. In that sense of
Knowing,
insecurity. Yeah, sorry.
knowing that you're just a part of this universal consciousness is such a great thing to
You
have
are
this.
the universal consciousness. You're not a part. You
Exactly.
are.
Being this universal consciousness, realizing it,
Yes,
that
yes,
journey is
yes,
completely
yes.
transformative.
That is what my day-to-day life looks like, and everybody's is without their knowledge, because you are that. And yeah, we just don't know it. Yes.
Coming to the story Multan Sindh, how did you, come into this, get involved into this anthology, and what was your journey throughout writing this story?
So writing has always interested me because I love words, and my mother was a writer. She doesn't write as much now, but that's how my parents met. She wrote a story, it won some award,
Wow.
and she wrote in Telugu, and she got many letters, and my father's was one of them. And anyways, long story.
Wow.
So I love to write. My father writes well too. He started writing now. He writes in concise form the Bhagavad Gita or the Puranas, just to make it easier for youngsters to read, both in English and Telugu. So writing was there. My grandfather, my Nanaji, used to be the editor of, I think, Krishna Patrika, which was a very famous Telugu magazine. So yeah, writing has always been there, and I love words. I love languages. I love cultures. I love words. And this particular anthology was the first one I attempted. I have known Indic Academy's work. They do stellar work in the area of Indian culture, as you know. And this anthology, the call for it came out by Avatans Kumar ji, जो US में है. मीनाक्षी जैन जी का, पद्मश्री मीनाक्षी जैन जी की पुस्तक आई थी तभी. I think it was released, Flight of Deities, it was called, and it's about the struggle that Hindus have gone to not just build the temples but to protect the deities. जो मंदिर तोड़े गए थे, और the मूर्तियों जिनको मतलब they were trying to destroyed or were trying to destroy, or so the people, and not just the purohits or the archakas who were doing puja, including the people and others, would go to great lengths to either hide it underground according to the shastra, जो भी है आपद धर्म के अनुसार. So they would hide it, or have a false murti, or for example Multan में जो actual murti तोड़ी गई थी, तो they put something with some other material, not the actual. So let's say it was of Panchaloha. I'm not sure what was the original murti, maybe it was of stone or granite, I'm not sure. So they put another murti just to make sure that the invaders, when they came, they didn't desecrate the actual murti. Actual murti की पूजा हो रही है कहीं और कहीं और है वो. Or people went from Mathura to Gujarat to hide a murti, or to the south, and ऐसे बहुत instances. So the book is very heart-rending, very sad. When I heard Meenakshi ji's talk on Sangam Talks, they have amazing talks by all these stalwarts. I was in tears, and so were most of us, and especially Avatans ji talks about it, that he was in tears. He attended it in person, and he called for an anthology so that people write about it and let youngsters or others who don't read the serious books like Meenakshi Jainji's pustak will read stories at least, because we are a land of stories. Storytelling emanated from us. Ramayana, Mahabharata, Puran. Matlab, we are the grandmother land of grandmothers and stories, right? So he said we should have this, and when I saw that, and unfortunately, I'm saying, because at that time my intention to write the story was different. So there was this case of Wrinkle Kumari, Pakistan mein. She is, and I hope she's fine, is a Hindu, Pakistani Hindu girl, and she was forcefully converted.
Okay.
into Islam and married off. And it was big news about a decade ago, I think. I'm not sure exactly when, but this was some time ago. And it really, I felt a tug at my heart because this was shocking. I didn't know these practices, this still happened. And now, of course, we know with Kerala story, with news in the media, and we kind of know that बहुत कुछ होता है ऐसे, and on a regular basis, unfortunately, in Bangladesh, India also, and in Pakistan.
Hmm.
And I started reading up on it, and I kept track of what was happening over the years to realize
Hmm.
that it's happening more and more, or maybe it's being reported more and more. And now there's social media handles also reporting on it. But at that time, when I read it, I started collecting and researching information of all these converted, जैसे उठाते हैं उनको, and
Hmm.
the word because it seems like it's very simple and normal ki, kidnapped and converted, so they would probably rape and torture and sexually harass and threaten her with the death of her parents or family to convert, because you could see the fear in her eyes, and all the girls. And there was another photograph of this man in tattered clothes sitting on a road crying because his daughters were abducted. There is this shrine, Sufi shrine. I think it's in Sindh called. I've researched and put it in the story, and now I don't remember so much. I think it's in Sindh called the Bar Chundi. I don't know if I'm pronouncing
Yes.
it correctly. Shrine, and that is very infamous for doing something like this. Ajmer में भी हुआ था ऐसे. I mean, they had gang raped girls from Safaya College and others in Ajmer, and started blackmailing them with videos. And the Sufi people who, or whatever they called, who are heading the Ajmer Sharif or whatever it is, were responsible for it. And there's a movie coming out on it. Yeah. So this was happening in Pakistan, and it was something that I felt very strongly about, and I wanted to write on it even before this anthology call for anthology came. So when I saw that there was call of this anthology in 2020, sometime early 2020, I remembered that incident because in the book, Meenakshi ji writes about the Multan ka mandir, Surya Devata ka mandir. So I thought, oh, it'll be a good chance for me to put in what I want to put in terms of what's happening in Pakistan, using the Multan ka mandir as a via media kind of. So my intention was different at that time. It was more about the social issue than the movie as such. But I researched, and while I researched, I realized that the Surya Bhagwan ke बहुत सारे मंदिर होते थे all over the Indian subcontinent, and now we don't have any of that age. They've all been broken and all that. But that was a start, and that made me write it.
Okay, so as belong from a journalistic background, and we see that you have beautifully brought out the current issues, which are very relevant. Uh, could you please suggest that how the new writers can balance current or the contemporary issues with historical fiction, because as we all know कि साहित्य समाज का दर्पण होता है, literature is the mirror of the society. So how do new budding writers who are not quite as experienced in this field bring these two together? Because if it's just historical fiction or if it's just contemporary, how do we bring them together? How do we weave them together?
So, first of all, you have to be empathetic and passionate about your topic and subject, right? So, I wouldn't have. And there was another anthology, the first anthology Sai Swarupa ji had put together, Unsung Valor, and उसमें था कि महाभारत के जो unknown heroes हैं, warriors हैं, उनके बारे में लिखो. So, I didn't know much about it. So, I'm like, I can't contribute. So, you have to be interested in the topic सबसे पहले. जो आप लिखने जा रहे हो, you should have that passion, that empathy, that interest. And once you have it, you have to research well. So you have all the information with you, and maybe you have two different documents. In one, you have historical research, and the other, you maintain your current whatever research you've done. And then to put together both of them, and I'm not that big a writer to be giving advice, but the way I do it is, if I'm interested in something, I start researching and compiling all the information. Then I have days when I just put off the phone and I don't get distracted. आजकल बहुत social media, WhatsApp calls, ये वो बहुत distraction है. So I just maybe go to a quiet place and and just let it, all the information come together and खिचड़ी बन जाता है. Let it marinate and sit in your brain, and lay out your structure कि कैसे करना है उसे. And it's all practice. And I would say the main thing for me that works for me and I feel satisfied with what I have produced is, after I've written and gone through a few times, few iterations, लिख के उसको छोड़ दो, फिर you come back to it and look at it with fresh eyes, and you know कि अच्छी है कि नहीं, then you keep changing, right? So don't send it immediately to wherever you have to send it, and let them know कि भाई मैं और लिख रही हूँ and इसको मैं develop कर रही हूँ. And after maybe a week or 10 days or months, or depends on what your time period is, start reading it with the reader's eyes. Who are your target audience? उनके अनुसार आप पढ़ें. Like if you think you want the youth to read it, and you know what's happening with the youth and what is their understanding of parlance or whatever, read it from that point of view. Or if you think the whole world is my audience, ठीक है, globally आप देखो कि कोई अगर ये for example a Korean is reading it or a Japanese, what would they question and what would they want? Don't change everything, but try to read it from different perspectives as a reader, not as a writer. Don't attach yourself to the writing. In the end it should be like, think of how a reader will look at it. And for me, I feel when I write, it's very important that whether I'm talking to you, whether I'm writing something, I would want people to take away something from whatever, either what I'm saying, because again, there's a lot of these subhashitas, right? So which say that you should speak only if you're improving on silence. Of course, you have to speak sweetly, and which I have to still, as per my mother, I have to still develop that. But speak sweetly and honestly, but satya bhi bolo, but you should not just speak truth if it's hurting somebody, right? Or to upset somebody. So your intention is very important and all that. But what I'm trying to get at is, if you don't have anything meaningful to say, then just be silent. Hai na? So same thing with the writing. If there is nothing interesting, it either should be interesting, or it should have some information which the reader doesn't know. It has to have some value. If doesn't have any of this, better to not write, right? So why write something? So these are important aspects I think a writer should think about, and practice is most important. किसी भी विषय में अभ्यास के बिना तो कुछ भी नहीं होगा.
I think that will definitely help the upcoming writers, in their work.
I'm upcoming. So I have a lot of colleagues in these anthologies who are very, very like Flight of Deities. 1 second, sorry. So Flight of Deities, this is the book for readers. And this has a story which I really like by Deepa Duraiswamy ji.
I did a session.
Yeah, amazing. Aditi Banerjee, who's amazing. She's written well. Bela ka first jo story hai, that's very nice. Younger Aditi Rao, her book, her story is very wonderful. So there are a lot of, all the women all the men are also written, but these are my favorites. And what I'm saying is, I'm also upcoming, or maybe just like static. I don't know about upcoming, but I like writing. But just write.
What I believe and what my teachers have taught me, that in the business of, not business, but writing and reading, you're never finished with learning. It's always an ongoing process,
Right.
and it will always be.
Yes, and you've done literature. So for you, you're saying writing and reading because you've done literature. So you've done it in English, your literature?
Yes, in English, yes.
Okay. And you're from Sagar. You said you're from
Yes.
Sagar. So that's
Yes.
nice to know. You were telling me about this a group which I was very keen about. I want to ask you more. There's some doodling group, and आप लोगों ने कुछ cultural कुछ किया था. I just want to know a little more about it. I want the viewers to know more about it. Because
Sure,
for me,
why not?
sorry, before you start, for me, I have lived in small towns where my father used to be posted, and I'm a small town girl. I like small towns. Hyderabad is too big for me, so I live in this area which is like a small town in Hyderabad, and I'd rather be there than go anywhere else. So it's very heartening to know that so much is happening in small towns which have big hearts.
Sagar is basically the heart of Madhya Pradesh, and it's a small town, as you said. It's very warm, and I've been born and brought up here. But I always used to long for a group of people who would love to read any sort of literature, like the world literature, anything, poems.
But only
stories.
English? आप लोग हिंदी साहित्य में पढ़ते हैं?
We do all the, even Hindi, Urdu, all the literatures we go for. It's a blend of so many different people. Somebody is writing in Shuddha Hindi, somebody is writing in ekdam advanced English, somebody is writing in Urdu. So we get a lot of things. When I came into my first year of college, I got to know about this group, and I went for a meeting, just one meeting. I went with my friend, and I saw these people. There were a bunch of people, all in their 20s or 20s only, not older than that. And it was a very safe environment, and they were all reciting poems written by them and poems written by other writers whom they liked. So it was a very safe place. So from there we started their journey. Then we when we conducted many open mics as well in Sagar itself, because there is no such community in Sagar. There was no such community
Most
before.
towns don't have it, and when I was growing up, I longed for something like this. So that's why I'm so happy, and that's why I wanted you to talk about it, because other cities or towns, if people don't have it, they can start, they can be encouraged by what you have done in Sagar. Yeah. Very
Thankfully, after doodling words, a lot of communities came up, and Sagar is now full of such communities. We
wow.
also tried during COVID period we did a series called Bat Kahi,
Hmm.
and
But
we
but
talked
kahi,
to Bat
but
Kahi.
mhm.
So we talked to the artists, local artists from Sagar, writers, singers, and different
Wow.
different people, experienced people. And I was surprised. I was so surprised to see that there's so much talent in Sagar, and I never knew about it.
Yes.
So it was really enlightening.
So yeah, when you come together as a community, so much can happen. So these
Yes.
anthologies, that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Indian Academy does this, and I love it because for people like me who are not professional writers, it gives a chance to just hone your skills a little bit. There's some deadline. There is a workshop. You're meeting other writers, so it's kind of interesting, similar to what you're saying. But we do this online because all of us are from different parts of the country. But you're doing something similar, but in person in Sagar, which is amazing. Yeah.
Thank
And
you
since
so
you
much.
spoke, you're welcome. Since you spoke about Shuddha Hindi, let me tell you, if you go to our YouTube channel, Brihat YouTube channel, you will see a lot of episodes, and they're still coming up. About three or four already we've put up, called Swarnanjali. So it is a
Okay.
dialogue in Shuddha Hindi on various Hindi books. Hindi Sahitya par hai ye.
Wow.
Or हाँ, so please have a look, and maybe your
Absolutely.
viewers or your group can also watch it.
Absolutely. It would be very interesting to learn more.
I'm also learning because I try to speak Shuddh Hindi now, especially in the team that we're working with. So it's very hard. So any language, if you speak it fully in that language, then that gives you the whole, the essence and the feeling, the philosophy, everything it carries, right? So nowadays we are so used to mixing. Like I'm speaking Hindi, English, I'm
Yes.
mixing. If you were in Hyderabad, I would put some Telugu words also. So none of us now actually speak eloquently in any one language, which is very sad. So yeah, I'm trying to speak. When I speak, I try and speak Shuddh Hindi with the team members. So it's quite interesting to see how many other words have creeped in. Whether it's English or Farsi, Urdu. I mean, Turki, and yeah, even local language. So yeah.
I think today it's a blend of a lot many languages coming together, because it's not just one language. The Gen Z has brought in this language, this new language which involves short forms of all the words. It is really scary.
So as such, it's not a problem. I feel because then we don't go into the depth of any language. It's okay to do that.
It's
It's
true.
okay if that is also what you do. But if that's only what you do, then it's hard. That means you're not using your mind, your intelligence, your buddhi, your whatever you have, your capacity to the fullest. Because then you're not able to express in one language completely, right? So that's the issue.
And I think that is the reason so many languages are going away from us. We
Mhm.
don't know how to speak. If my generation does not know how to speak Hindi properly, even English properly. We mix up sentences, and that is the problem, that we don't know one language thoroughly. We are not thorough with
Yes.
even our mother tongue. That is the
Especially
problem.
our mother tongues, which have taken a beating, which is
Especially.
very sad. Especially our mother tongue. Yeah.
Coming to the story, a very unique aspect of your story, you said about Aditi ji's story, and then you said about other story as well. I found your story very unique in the perspective that the DT does not have an homecoming, right?
Yes.
It's as if the DT is trapped as an artifact in the four walls of glass.
Unfortunately. Yeah.
Do you think it is a metaphor of a culture becoming an artifact, being trapped, and
Yes.
away from the civilization?
Yes. Because we are. when I say only, then people correct me and say, oh, China also has a continual
Mhm.
civilization. But let's say we are one of the two or one of the very few longest continuing civilizations in the world right now, in the kind of depth and breadth that we have, right? And we are refusing to be mummified, we are refusing to be museumified, so to speak.
Yes.
And the Western colonial
Mhm.
ideology, if you
Mhm.
will, is constantly trying to um, put us in a museum, and then they will like us as long as we are in the museum on the other side, behind these glass panels, and can be looked at with curiosity
Mhm.
and intellectual interest. Oh, this was their culture was 5,000 years old or older, and look what they built.
Mhm.
And so if they can intellectualize it, they would love us. And we
Mhm.
refuse to die, we refuse to, thankfully. And so that is where culture is important, because we have so much to offer to the world, and we are
Mhm.
also a continuum. And
Mhm.
uh, we think in a very different manner from how the West looks at the world, right? So it's a very linear system, it's a very
Mhm.
rational system,
Mhm.
it's a very belief oriented system. I would say they're much more superstitious, they are superstitious, and we are. There's a lot of, it's actually very sad. What you said, yes, my deity has no homecoming. My devata in the story is stuck where he is. And even so, I would think if such a situation happens in India, let's say there is a murti which
Mhm.
has been found, if it is not damaged, because I have heard from
Mhm.
experts that ऐसी मूर्ति को पूजा नहीं जाता, but if there
Mhm.
are murtis who are fine, have been
Mhm.
found,
Mhm.
they, or even abroad, they should either be returned,
Mhm.
and it is happening
Mhm.
now. I think that project, the Pride, what's the project called? They're getting the murtis back.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
very
Mhm.
good work being done by them. I'm sorry, I forget the name.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so if such murtis are brought back,
Mhm.
puja honi chahiye, because they carry with them so much power, and so much blessings we lose out on if we don't treat them as devatas, which they are, the murtis that they are. So we should. And Cambodia में मैंने देखा
Mhm.
Angkor Wat में about 5 years, that is also in ruins. And
Mhm.
जो मूर्तियां वहाँ हैं उनकी पूजा होती है, and it is also a part of Apsara is a full form, उसका full form कुछ है, the authority which looks after the temples there,
Mhm.
Angkor,
Mhm.
not Apsara as a person, but Apsara as a
Mhm.
organization, that
Mhm.
like ASI for us, right?
Mhm.
Archaeological Society. So
Mhm.
they are in charge of those the Angkor Wat complex, but they
Mhm.
don't interfere in the people doing puja, because बहुत भक्ति है.
Mhm.
So people go and leave incense and flowers and pani वहाँ for Pitra Devata, they leave water. And
Mhm.
so nobody objects, and दिया जलाते हैं, वो candles लगाते हैं, and the guards are very happy to see that. And here we cannot. So maybe the ASI can team up with the Ministry of
Mhm.
Culture and the local bodies, local people, where the
Mhm.
deities form and community, and puja honi chahiye, absolutely honi chahiye.
Mhm.
And it is sad कि नहीं हो रही है. Like, why aren't we following our culture, our custom?
Exactly.
Why
Mhm.
are we putting these in a museum and saying
Mhm.
कि this is what was found? I mean, we don't believe in linear history, and we actually believe कि ये सबसे पहले तो सब कुछ ही भगवान है. And definitely the मूर्तिज which have been, जिनके प्राण प्रतिष्ठा हुई है. So
Prime Pratishtha, right?
we should go from that point of view, not that these are just some stone idols found in an
Hmm.
excavation that should be put in a museum. That's not who we are.
The colonizers have already left, and now it is on us to actually, revive our culture and keep it safe. An extension to what I already asked is that many temples were recreated, right? But this temple sadly could not be recreated. It was in ruins, and there are many sun temples which are in ruins today. There are a very few which you can count on your fingers remaining. So there's this sect or there's this culture which is completely entirely lost.
Hmm.
You know, as a it's there in memory. It's
Yeah.
there
Yeah,
in
Surya
people.
worship. Yes.
Hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, a very good question, because it intrigued me also. So, when I actually got down to writing Multan Sindh, the short story, I started researching on, and that was so my Aradhya is Surya Bhagwan. Of course, Hanumanji should not get upset because I love him also. But Surya Bhagwan to bahut puchti hu main. And so, when I started writing this, I literally feel that he led me to write the series of stories on Surya Mandir, because when I wrote this, like I said, my intention was to bring to light what is happening to Pakistani Hindu girls, how they
Right.
have been
Right.
regularly being kidnapped and raped and converted at
Hmm.
literally gunpoint, yeah, and with threats. So but then when I started writing it, I realized that this was a huge temple. And हम मुल्तानी मिट्टी, जो मीनाक्षी जी अपने पुस्तक में
हाँ.
लिखती हैं,
Hmm.
मुल्तानी मिट्टी हम कहते हैं ओ फेशियल के लिए अच्छा है. I grew up, multani mitti, multani mitti, but
Hmm.
it's actually because it's very beneficial. It's got medicinal qualities, because वहाँ सूर्य भगवान का मंदिर हुआ करता था, and सूर्य देवता is all about skin. It's about your health, तो वहाँ
Yes.
की मिट्टी, imagine the cultural story that has come through generation. अभी भी मुल्तानी मिट्टी कहते हैं हम, that it is very
Absolutely.
beneficial.
Hmm.
So think of
Yes.
the power of that temple, and the historians and the travelers who wrote about it sing its praises sky high. And I would recommend everybody to please read Meenakshi Jainji's pustak of Flight of Deities before you read the anthology. So, anyways, so when I wrote that, Surya Bhagwanji led me to the various other temples. I had been to Modhera with my family, and it is spectacular. It's beautiful, except that when I went to the main Garbhagriha, वहाँ तो भगवान की सूर्य मूर्ति तो है ही नहीं. So, and then I'm like, oh, I didn't know, because I hadn't researched so much when I had gone. But now, after writing this story, I started researching. So I thought, let me write a series. And I thought, matlab, Surya Bhagwan ne karwaya. कि आप लिखो. So it was a series of stories written on clockwise. If you look at the Indian map and go clockwise, so Modhera, Martand, Konark, and then there's a Surya temple in Srikakulam ke paas, Andhra mein hai, and then Tamil Nadu
Andhra.
mein ek hai.
Tamil
हाँ,
Nadu.
and then Tamil Nadu. So these, the one in Andhra and Tamil Nadu are not that old as far as I know, and they're still living temples. वहाँ worship है, but Modhera, it was so huge and so spectacular. Martand was spectacular. Konark, these were desecrated, broken completely, and the murtis have disappeared, and there's no worship there anymore. They're just like tourist spots where people go, or as in the case of Martand, as you know, the Bollywood types will go dance, devil dances in it, and and that movie becomes a hit. So unfortunate. So when I started researching, I thought, let me write. So I started writing on these places and realized that, like you said, what is lost is the sect of Surya worshippers. That is lost, because there was a whole sect of पंथ जो सिर्फ सूर्य भगवान की आराधना करते थे. So that is lost in the way that it was before, and that is unfortunate.
And there are so many other cultures, parts of culture which have been lost, and we don't even know about it. My generation, we don't know. If I was not talking to you, if I haven't read about it, I would never come to know about it. It's just lost, which is very unfortunate. I
But it's
don't
very
know.
amazing, Anmol, that you keep saying my generation, but don't berate yourself so much, because you're doing great work. And knowing, I think the youth in Sagar is doing great work. Now, what you told me, right? So there is a lot of hope. I know a lot of youngsters, whether in Brihat or the one wonderful aspect of working with Brihat is I get to meet a lot of youngsters like you, who are very enthused and who are very passionate and hardworking and do a lot of good work. So I would say the generation which didn't do the work is probably my generation or my parents, because we didn't know. Like my parents didn't know. My parents' generation, I'm saying, in the sense of the big picture of what's getting lost, right? So, and then we were also, I say, matlab, bhila. We're only, awakening now. And I would say the young is very, very aware and very smart. And I would give you all the credit.
For me, it all came through Sutradhar and Gaurav sir and the stories. Uh, Sir even always encourages all of us to read the text, the Puranas,
Original, yeah.
Mahabharat, Ramayana, all those. So I have to thank Sutradhar, for
Absolutely.
this.
I talked to him the first time for Arya when we had the interview. you. And he's a wonderful person who is very generous with his time, with his knowledge, and very encouraging.
Absolutely.
And everybody who's listening to this should buy Ranbhoomi, the game. It's a board game, and it'll introduce you and your children and your family to Mahabharata. In various ways. You might think you know it, but yes, I think everybody should have it. It's a wonderful game. I mean, हम लोग snakes and ladders खेलते हैं. That is also an Indic game that was made into snakes and
Yes.
ladders. And
Yes.
so we have a lot of board games. We have a culture of board games. Shiva Parvati हमेशा board games
Absolutely.
खेलते हैं. So
Yes.
those board games, right? Yeah.
So, coming back to the story, the writing part of it, because I'm quite interested to know how was the character building process. There are very interesting characters. One of them was the mother of Nuruddin. So she is the relic of a person. She is, she is converted person, and she lives her whole life for this just one moment to tell her son that you have to go there to Surya Devta and you have to pray to him. You have to do something for him. Her whole life she has lived there. She has, tried to be that person who she is not, and she has kept the culture in herself alive. Just and these characters are not mere characters; they are flesh and blood.
Thank
So
you.
I want to know about the character building process and what advice can you give us young writers for
See,
this?
like I said again, I'm not that big of a writer to give advice, but I'll tell you how I did it. If it can help, that'll be great. I'm thinking when you asked me, I'm thinking of this incident with Patrick French, the late Patrick French, who was an amazing writer, and he'd written a book on India which I had loved. He, of course, wrote the biography of V.S. Naipaul, and he was his shishya, so to speak, and then he wrote this book on India. So he had come to a bookstore near me, and I had gone to visit and talk to him. And he was a very genial, very affable person. And I asked him, like, how do you put your research and your writing? There were no characters in that, but there are no fictional characters. But how do you put it together? And that's a question I had for V.S. Naipaul also, who also I had a chance to meet in a bookstore. And of course, V.S. Naipaul is very उनसे बात नहीं कर सकते because he's not very affable. Patrick French was just the opposite of V.S. Naipaul. So I could approach him and I said, how do you do it? So he was also, it's just the answer he gave me is what I will tell you. He just said that do your research, put it together, and start writing. It'll happen on its own, which is true, and he had written a huge book, and that's hard because I have not attempted a book yet. When I was young, that was one of on my to-do lists. Abhi I don't want to stress myself so much. It's too much, too much ticking to do. And like I said, with Vedanta, it's like you take it easy. But yeah, when I was young, one of the things I wanted to accomplish was, apart from climbing Mount Everest, was to write a book. Because that was the thing. उन दिनों में क्या social media नहीं, internet नहीं, कुछ नहीं ना. So the way you make your name is through writing a book or something in a decent way. Actress वगैरह तो was not considered. So anyways, I would say how do you write your character? So in this case, like I said, you have to empathize. If you're writing fiction of any sorts, mythological or historical, any sorts, you have to have empathy for the character you're writing, and you have to be that in a sense, like how the actors will act. It's like you do your theater or movies, and you do a workshop, so you become that character. A writer also, at least in my case, that's how I do it, is I become that. So I feel that. So I'm thinking, oh my God, if such and such thing were to happen to me. So initially there's that duality, and then you become that. So I am that mother who's holding that culture for so long. So and then the story writes itself. The character will write it for you because you introduce the character with all sincerity and feeling and relevance. It should be relevant. You can't just introduce because मुझे empathy है तो मैं इसको ला. So it has to be relevant. It has to be interesting. All the conditions I told you before. But
Yes.
definitely have be that character, live that character as an actor would, and then it'll write itself. Let it write itself, and that's why I said so many iterations happen. You keep writing, and then you come back to it, and you'll be like, नहीं, इसने यहाँ character ने मुझसे लिखवाया इतना, but I think yahan tak theek hai. I don't want to have 4 pages of what the character is saying. Let me take control and let me say, okay, as Kavita the writer, I'm like, theek hai. The character wrote itself for 5 pages. I come back to it in a week or two, and I'm like, no, I think 3 pages is good enough. So then you edit it. So it's a continuous process of living the character, writing, which is very hard work for me at least. I do it very quickly though, so I need a lot of time to ruminate, to do nothing, and suddenly I'll be like, so
Yeah.
yeah, that's how I do it. I don't. Some people are very like every day chalo likhte hain, which is also a good practice. It's actually good for writing, but I'm extremely quick. But for that quickness to happen, I need a lot of time. So you know what I'm saying. So I need, so that pregnancy takes a long time.
Yes,
Delivery
I
is
get it.
yes.
At this point, I request the audience if they have any questions, they can put it up, and we'll ask the questions. Okay, so this character building, these characters, they have a life of their own, and we have to ruminate. Definitely, for me also, if I've not written I've not written much, 0.1% of what
Oh,
I've
you should
written.
write. You should write. You're talking to
So
all the writers. You better write now. Youngsters should write. All the young people should write. There's a lot of anthologies coming out. Call for anthologies from Indic Academy. Please look up their website, and please
absolutely.
just write. Not just you, like anybody who's watching, young, old, like just write, just contribute. It helps you to write and bring out stories we don't know. Yeah.
You said that you had a goal in your childhood that you wanted to write a book. Can we see something like that in the forthcoming times?
So now I'm trying my best not so constantly Vedanta में जो सिखाते हैं ना, past 10 years what I've been learning is just be, don't do. So do your duty, है ना, वो तो करना ही है, कर्तव्य तो अपना निभाना है, but because all the goals that you would set would still be, so the idea of Vedanta kya hai, that as we discussed at the beginning of this talk, is to experience yourself without any maya, right? So
Duality.
so to do that, if I continue to have dreams and aspirations in the Vyavahara world, which as per Vedanta is Maya, it's not false, it's also not true, it's in between. That's why it's called Maya, it's magic. So if I continue to have those kind of goals and ambitions and aspirations, I'm still stuck there, right? I'm still considering myself as a Nama Rupa Kavita. अगर मैं अपने आप को सच्चिदानंद समझती हूँ, जो कि मैं समझती हूँ, टू लिव इट इज हार्डर. सो अगर मैं हूँ, अगर नहीं मैं हूँ, तो ये सब जो होगा, it has to drop at some point. Otherwise, I'll constantly keep adding to the list, right? Then I'm living as Kavita Meegama. I'm not living as Sachidananda. So the idea of transitioning from a sansari to a sadhaka, and from right now I'm a sadhaka to a jnani, mumukshura jnani, would be that I drop this aham and mama, ahankara and mamakara, and I will write this book as ahankara. ये जो कहानियां अगर मैं लिख रही हूँ, आप पूछ सकते हो कि why are you writing them? So whatever comes sahaj, whatever is natural, I'm venting that, So कुछ बना के नहीं करूँ कि I planning कि ये मुझे achieve करना है, ऐसे नहीं. Call for anthology आया, समय है, चलो weekend पे कुछ लिख लेते हैं. और also the intention is okay, the youngsters like you will know about something, and it's simple. ज़्यादा आयास नहीं होना चाहिए, ज़्यादा tiresome नहीं होना चाहिए. Life in Vedanta especially, you lead a simple life. You concentrate on the actual goal, and you work for your living, honest job karo, and अपना कर्तव्य निभाओ, but do your sadhana. So the sadhana takes premium. अगर मैं पुस्तक को premium करूँगी कि I want to make a name in the future, then that takes away my focus. But to answer your question, only Bhagwan knows. I don't know. I mean, I am Bhagwan, but right now, more Kavita than Bhagwan. So I don't know. Sorry about that long-winded answer,
but listening to you, I feel you have moved quite forward in the journey from Nam Roop to Satchitanand that way.
तो अगर ये journey है तो यहीं पे कहीं हूँ, thanks to the grace of my gurus. So yes, but it's a long way off. Yes. I still enjoy my Turkish drama and Korean drama. So, yeah, so long way off.
Okay, so what are you reading these days then?
Good question. So I wasn't reading for many years. I was just listening to Vedanta talks, and I became a very boring person from a regular Vyavahara empirical world point of view, right? Gurukulam mein to I was not like, I could be one of the regular sadhakas. I was not even like the top sadhaka, but okay. I mean, we shouldn't compare like that. What I'm saying is, wahan to, but from an outsider's point of view, looking into a Gurukulam person, from a family's perspective, friends' perspective, I lost a lot of friends to this pursuit of mine because friends माने socializing है या partying है तो बहुत कम हो गया and interest भी नहीं है, दिलचस्पी भी नहीं है. I'd rather be at home and be with myself. So after joining Brihat, because our work is about culture and we need to know so we can write about it and talk about it, I started reading again. And I'm glad I did. So I have to thank Brihat for it. And interestingly, before I go to the books, I have to say one thing about the stories that I was writing, the Surya Bhagwan stories. A story that I wrote. So I told you I wrote on all the Surya Mandir. तो जो सूर्य मंदिर आंध्र प्रदेश में है उसके बारे में मैंने लिखा. एंड वो राघव कृष्ण जी जो बृहत के फाउंडर डायरेक्टर हैं, he read it and thankfully he liked it because that's how he contacted me and that's how I got the jobs. People write stories and get jobs. Okay, in the book, right? So currently I am reading this.
Okay.
This is by a co-author of Arya Anthology who also wrote a story for Anandamala, Ranjit Radhakrishnan. This is an amazing book. I'm loving it. It's about Parashuram and he calls it mythological fiction, and that's the genre. And he writes beautifully. He wrote in Arya also, and that's when I was introduced to his writing. And he writes very well, and I would recommend this book very highly. Mainly because Parashuram is not somebody I was very interested in. I was like, क्या इन पे क्यों लिखा है? मतलब गुस्सा रहते हैं and so like what can you write?
The angry sage.
So but पढ़ो, you will know more. Okay, and 2 more books.
Absolutely.
All right, these are heavy. So this is a must read for everybody who felt very hurt and upset how Hindus were maligned during this whole incident in Kathua, in Jammu. I won't give away much, but I would definitely recommend you buy the book. Madhu Kishwarji went on the ground, researched on the field the way it should be done. And she is one person who speaks English fabulously and Hindi fabulously. वो मिलाती नहीं है भाषाएं. मिलाएंगे भी तो भी she knows her languages very well in depth. And this is an amazing book, not in terms of I enjoyed it, not like that. Actually, it was very heartbreaking to see that the accused there's no case literally. So FIR doesn't talk of any rape. And we were all maligned by these Bollywood actresses onwards and worldwide. कि मंदिर में हो गया, So please read, please, and I pray that all the accused are freed soon. And my prayers every day for their early release. And what I'm supposed to be. I hope my Swamijis are not watching because they'll be like, क्या कर रही हो तुम? तुम ढंग की पढ़ाई नहीं कर रही हो, which is this. So
Shad Darshan.
Shad Darshan. So Sat Darshan. Sat ka darshan, then it's Sandhi, then it's the. Sat Darshan, Sat Darshan.
Okay.
ठीक है? So Ramana Maharshi जो थे South India में near Tiruvannamalai. So he lived in recent times. It's not like so long ago. And he stayed silent for many years, maun the, and then he started. So when he spoke, because he saw the Shishya in front of him, who is this person, Kavya Kantha Ganapati Muni, जो यहाँ लिखा हुआ है ना. So so ये रमण महर्षि जी हैं, and he had like spontaneously when he saw the Shishya in front of him, spontaneously Sat Darshan came out, like 40 verses. In Telugu and Tamil simultaneously उन्होंने बोला उन्होंने शायद I think the devotees wrote it for the students. He spoke because after many years of silence, that's the first thing he spoke is what I remember. And Kavya Kantha Ganapati Muni jo unke afterwards when he met him and he became a serious disciple and a shishya and everything, he translated them into Sanskrit, on which one of my gurus, Swami Tattvavidananda Saraswati ji, jo ghar ke paas mein rehte hain 20 minutes away, he's of the Arsha Vidya Parampara, he did a commentary of this. Okay. We have Brahmana Maharshi who actually wrote it in Tamil and Telugu or said it. And then you have Kavita Ganapati Muni, who translated into Sanskritam,
Sanskrit.
on which Swami
Commentary.
Bhaktivedanta Maru commented. So it's fabulous. And so when I went to offer bhiksha, which one must do to sannyasis on a regular basis because householders or others are responsible for sannyasis. So जब मैं गई तो स्वामी जी ने पहली बार जब मैं गई तो ही वाज लाइक हाँ ये पुस्तक वो पुस्तक अभी ये पब्लिश हुआ ये ले लो तुम्हारे पास क्या है आई एम लाइक स्वामी जी मैं तो आजकल पढ़ नहीं रही हूँ आई एम जस्ट डूइंग श्रवणम मैं तो सुन रही हूँ बिकॉज दैट वाज व्हाट द सीख वाज गिवन टू मी कि श्रवणम करो मननम करो so I said मैं तो पढ़ नहीं रही हूँ he says no अभी time है so they know like the time had to read you should read now so he gave me the book so it's very special so I have reduced so when you said what's your daily routine like I do a lot of shravanam also of Vedanta classes. And when it's not possible, like now, there's so much to do. And he said, you should read. So I started reading after a very long time. Yeah.
Oh, wow, that was such an interesting session, and we've already come to an end. I want to
Sorry,
talk
I
so
took
much
a
more.
long time.
No, it was so interesting, and I got to learn so many new things. And I have so many books to read now, which is always a great thing.
Yes, yes.
uh, Thank you so much, Kavita ji, for joining us. And I'm sure the audience also, got to know many new things, learned a lot, and you inspired them to go back to the Indian culture, the ancient Indian culture. Thank you so much. We are at the
Thank
end of our session. Namaste. Thank you.
Namaste. Thank you. Bye.